Who will be the New York Jets' number 2 wide receiver this season? That is the burning question on everybody's mind. This is where you'll get the answer. So let's get fired up. As always, thanks for tuning in. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. So, who will emerge as the Jets' number 2 wide receiver this season? Recently, offensive coordinator Tanner Engstrom said they want to be physical, aggressive, and explosive. They want to run an offense that takes advantage of the player's strengths. That sounds like coach speak, but I don't think it is. I keep hearing people say that the number 2 receiver isn't important. They don't really use a number 2 wide receiver in this offense. It's not a focal point, so it doesn't matter. Now, I understand why people are saying this. These comments are based on Justin Fields' tendencies and what he's done so far in his career. Newsflash: Justin Fields is not our offensive coordinator. I watched quite a few Detroit games last year, and I seem to recall them getting everybody involved. I expect more of the same here with the Jets. I keep hearing people say that our offense is going to be 1, Garrett Wilson, 2, dump off to either a tight end or running back, or 3, take off and run. And that's it. Now, to think that we are going to run an offense where we only throw to 1 receiver is not only narrow-minded, it's ludicrous. So, who will be our number 2 wide receiver this season? We have Allen Lazard, who's a pretty darn good receiver, or completely awful from 1 minute to the next. If I'm being honest, the one thing that Lazard has done consistently is to be inconsistent. We have Josh Reynolds. Josh is familiar with the system from his time in Detroit. He's a solid player, a decent player, but he's probably not going to break any records. I feel that Reynolds was brought in more so to be that extra coach, to help the other players with concepts and terminology so that they can pick up the playbook more quickly. At the moment, he's the clear-cut favorite to start opposite Garrett Wilson. Beyond that, we have a bunch of guys that are basically unproven. So who will be our wide receiver number 2 this year? Well, I'm going to give you the answer. The answer is Breece Hall. Now, I know Breece Hall's technically not a receiver, but he will be second on this team in receptions. I think he is in store for a huge year. Now, I know that Breece is coming off of a down year last year. It's turned a lot of people into doubters. It's turned a lot of people against him, where people are constantly speculating whether or not he'll be traded. I want to push back against all of that. Aaron Glenn sounds like he has a plan for Breece. He told Breece, we're not trading you. You're our running back. You're going to do everything. Breece is coming off a down year, but I really want to kind of dig into that a little bit. I feel that it was a combination of problems. Breece was coming back from a serious knee injury, but it didn't stop just with him getting hurt. The Jets added insult to injury, because coming back from being hurt, he walked right into back-to-back years in a Nathaniel Hackett offense. An offense that was so antiquated, so predictable, and just so inefficient from week to week. It was one of the worst things I've seen in recent memory. In addition to that, we had by far the worst offensive line coach in the entire league. These guys, not only were the blocking concepts simple and ineffective, but they couldn't even get them done right. Brian Baldinger said that what he saw couldn't compete with a high school team. So there were a number of problems that caused Brees to have the down year that he had. But I want you to think back to what he was like before he got injured. That Green Bay game, where on a simple trap play, he like pinballed off a couple of guys, got into the open, and took it to the house halfway down the field. The one play in Denver, he got one handoff and took it 70 yards to the end zone. Brees was one of the most explosive backs in the entire NFL. Unlike our previous offensive coordinator, who took 2/3 of a season to realize that Brees Hall could catch the ball, Tanner Engstrom comes in knowing what kind of a pass catcher Brees is. And I think he has a very clear vision of how he wants to use him. That's the one thing I can say about this offense is I think this offense is going to be unpredictable. I think they're going to find a number of creative ways to get everyone involved. But I want to go back to Brees for a minute. These are some numbers that I just recently heard that kind of put everything into context and really stood out to me. Last year, the Jets averaged 91 yards per game rushing as a team on average for the year. Ranked 31st rushing yards per game. However, they had a respectable 4.3 yards per carry. That tells you that the running game was efficient. There just wasn't enough of it. By the same token, our passing yards per game were on par for the average, but our passing yards per play were near the bottom of the league. Meaning a bunch of short passing, no shots downfield, and very little running. Brees did not have 20 or more carries in any game last year at all. You can't lead the league in rushing if you're getting 11 carries per game. The other problem is the runs that we did call. Pound Brees right up the middle between the tackles. That is not the kind of runner he is. Everything about that system was wrong. Joe Tippmann does his best work out in space, not in a phone booth against one of the better defensive tackles in the league. Brees Hall does his best work when you get him out into space. And we just didn't see any of that. Now, I know people always say, well, you can find a running back in the later rounds, blah, blah, blah. We have good backs. They're not elite backs. Yes, it's true. You can find a running back in the later rounds. You can't find an elite running back in the later rounds. That's why guys like Saquon and Bijan and Brees get drafted in the front of the draft. Brees was a second-round pick. They were trying to trade back into the first to get him. Okay? I know that Braylon Allen is a nice player. He's a bruiser between the tackles. He's a great goal line back, and he's got better hands than I think any of us expected. That being said, there's a reason that Allen and Davis were mid to late round picks. And there's a reason that Brees was picked at the top of the draft. Everything starts up front. That's something that Engstrom has said that I firmly believe in. If you can't run block and you can't pass block, you can't do anything. So it definitely starts up front. But running the ball is important too. I know that it's a passing league. It's a quarterback's league. But guess what? When inclement weather happens, towards the end of the year, playoff time, whether it's rain, snow, fog, whatever, all of a sudden you have to rely on that running game. And guess what? If you can't run the ball, play action doesn't work. And in an offense that's going to rely heavily on RPOs, you have to be able to run the ball. All that being said, I think we're going to see a balanced attack for a change from this Jets team, which is only going to help everyone. And I think some unexpected guys are going to step up into major roles. As I had stated before, Brees Hall will be second in the team in receptions. And you know what? I don't think it's even going to be close. I'm wearing my Brees Hall shirt. I got on my Brees Hall hat. I'm all in for a big bounce back year. I cannot wait. I'm looking really forward to it. I think we have a lot to be excited about. Thanks for tuning in. Everybody have a great day and go Jets.